to have landed in the highest ALG in the world. She indeed is an epitome of strength, willpower, ethics, and values. As a motivational and inspirational speaker, she inspires millions to give wings to their dreams. In conversation with Mrs. Namrita Chandi, we have our first discussant, Mrs. Seema Verma, an alumni of NIT Bhopal. She has been a Boeing and Airbus instructor, training pilots for different airlines. After retirement, she now runs an NGO by the name Saksham Society for empowering rural areas and has adopted a village in district Raisen. Welcome, ma'am. As the next discussant, we have Meenakshi Dua ma'am, member of the Society for Culture and Environment. She has been an HR professional for more than 3 decades in the public and private sector. Over these 30 years, she worked with Air India. Each of these 3 amazing, lovely ladies on the dais have made history in their own way. Namrita ji, by being one of the first lady helicopter pilot in India who has flown to Siachen. Seema ji, being the first and only lady instructor for pilots, and Meenakshi ji, by being the first lady to head the southern region as regional director with Air India. So, over to them now.
Friends, we were just talking in the earlier session about how to write stories. So sometimes we write stories and sometimes we make stories. So I think this is really a celebrity moment, and we have someone who actually is a celebrity. We have actually 2 people who here who are celebrities. And I mean, you could almost think she's out of a movie, a heroine out of a movie, but look at her. I mean, she looks so beautiful, could be in a movie, but she was the heroine of the movie written by the Indian Air Force, and she was their proud pilot. She's done historical things which slowly will get unveiled and revealed. And what I would like to say is that the first few, when I read the book, the first few books, the few chapters of her book were so enthralling. They were talking about various aspects of her life and how this little girl who used to, sleep starry-eyed, looking at the sky, looking at the stars, building her dreams, a girl who was running around in the fields and already dreaming to do big things, how she dreamt and made her dreams come true. You've already come to know that she's made history by becoming the very first, among the first helicopter pilots gone to Siachen, landed in Siachen. It may seem very simple, but it is extremely complex. And frankly, I was very confused whether the 3 of us, being in the airline, should be sitting on the chairs and talking or flying and talking. But I think we have no choice but to sit and talk. So, I'll briefly tell you about how the people have seen her in the book. The story is about how she became from the little girl with dreams to the big wing commander, Namrita Chandi. And I would also, before I move further, like to give like all of us, to give a warm hand to her. Let's all give her a big hand. And also to Seema ji, who happens to be the only lady instructor to train pilots for the Airbus and the Boeing. So which is again a remarkable feat. So friends, the book Unseen Wings is about Namrita empowering the audience to achieve their dreams. और जो सपनों से भी आगे जो सपने देखते हैं और उनको अचीव करना चाहते हैं. और जब तक आप बुक के एंड तक पहुंचेंगे, you will get to know a lot more about Namrita and her life and the inspiring life that she has lived. So Namrita's life and her description of how she grew from that dreamy little girl will inspire many generations of achievers, particularly women who aspire to soar. And today we have quite a few. And it is a mesmerizing journey of one of the first women pilots in the world to have flown into the Siachen Glacier and landed at Daulatabad Oldie. और इनकी किताब की जो नरेशन है वो इतनी खूबसूरत है और इतनी डिग्री ऑफ उसमें जाती है, मैग्नीट्यूड इंटेंसिटी में जाती है कि it almost seems like an autobiography. The Unseen Wings is a spectacular narration of an enterprising, aspiring woman, a young mother of 2 children, struggling against all social laws and the daunting challenges posed by the circumstances, who scripts an unprecedented success story. It's a must-read for those who want to break their shackles and achieve their dreams. It will be interesting to know what this little girl, prancing in the rich yellow fields of Tehri, broke the glass ceilings and to become one of our first helicopter pilots in Indian Air Force. And in the words of Namrita, which we read in her book, we have all seen unseen wings. We all have unseen wings. And it takes courage, faith, and perseverance to tap into the inner power, to unlock it and start flying in life. So चलिए शुरू करते हैं by asking her what made her write Unseen Wings and what made her choose this title.
Firstly, I just want to thank everybody present here and for thank the Society of Culture and Environment Bhopal for giving me this wonderful, beautiful space. It was just last year when my book was launched at the same place. So it's very nostalgic being here again and talking about my book this year. So yeah, what made me write this book is a very, very interesting question because, you know, the session we had just before the session about story writing, and what was discussed was that we all have stories. It's just that we need to internalize and realize that our story can add values to others. And this was way back in 2019, just before the COVID started. I'd gone for an event in Singapore from my company's side, and that was an EVE event with just women entrepreneurs and achievers and, you know, influencers had come. And there I had got to meet a woman from UK in originally and became friends with her, and we started sharing our stories. And when I shared my story, she was like, wow, why don't you write a book? And it's like, really? Can I write a book? You know, all these doubts, all those doubts came up. It's like, is it easy to write a book? Can anyone write a book? All that happened. And she told me, no, tonight you'll write the first page of the first chapter. And it's like, wow. And I just didn't believe it till the time I started writing. And that's how, and then the book writes it's for itself. Yeah, that's how it happens. So that's how my book happened. But why the title Unseen Wings, which I've given to my book? Because being from aviation, wings are very special to me. But why did I choose unseen? You know, because I feel that we all have that inner power, that true power within us, which we don't see it unless we make an effort to see it, because it takes a lot of courage, it takes faith, it takes perseverance to go to that power, to untap it and get it out of you. And once that power is out, you realize that you've always had wings with you. All it takes is to just try and fly out, and when you see the sky is the limit. So that ideology, that idea which I had experienced for so many years just came out in these 2 words, Unseen Wings, and that's how I, you know, put that title here.
So hi Namrita. Namrita, when I went through your book, very, very interesting book, and every chapter has keynotes in the end. I really enjoyed the book, but as an instructor who's been training pilots on civil aviation, of course, for last 30 years, you know, my aha moment was the last chapter, chapter 12, if anybody has read the book. And I'm going to read a para to tell you what this demure, beautiful, very feminine lady is all about. And then you will realize that she is something else. So before reading the paragraph, I also want to give a little technicalities about flying, because for a layman, you may not understand. So people who are not, who don't understand the science behind flying, I would like to tell you there are 2 things. One is atmosphere and one is the weather. On these two things, a pilot has no control. You may have forecast, you may have everything may fail. But machines are very good these days. They've only become, but these two things are still controlled. Like we very recently had an air crash. We lost our chief of the defense services. So with the best of machines, with the best of everything also, you may have, you may encounter bad weather. So when there is air density. Air density is very important because without air, the engine will not make the thrust. It will not give you the power. So air density is very, very crucial. So that would give you an idea that when the altitude also becomes very important for a pilot. So the higher you go, the rarer is the density and the less thrust the engine will make. So the altitude, then there are winds. Winds can destabilize you. Temperatures, very cold weather, very hot weather are also can also destabilize you. So when I was reading this chapter, now you'll understand. Namrita will just hold on. It's the last chapter 12 on page 141 if anybody has the book. I'll read it. As I started flying, I realized that we had to brave temperatures as low as minus 50 degrees centigrade, strong winds, lack of oxygen and flying in poor weather conditions in close proximity to the hills. There was always the threat of powerful downdrafts that pulled the helicopters down if we were not careful with zero scopes of error. Added to that was the fact that the helicopters at Siachen fly at the edge of their flight envelopes because of the air density, where the power margin available is small if not negligible. Any miscalculation or mishandling of controls could result in a catastrophic accident. The landing on the matchbox size helipads had to be precise. Now this, in civil aviation we would have never allowed these kind of envelopes. In military flying, of course, but even in military flying, these are the really extreme conditions. And imagine her flying. So she's made of something else. She's made of steel. So that is what I think will give you an insight of what she is made of.
Thank you so much, Seema ji, for saying that. But just that reminds me of another kind of event that happened, and this was while I was flying in Kedarnath. I had retired from the Air Force, and I was flying in the civil helicopters and in the Kedarnath Valley where they do this, they do the darshans of Kedarnath and Badrinath. So one day I'd just gone and dropped off someone at Dehradun, and I was coming back. It was close to sunset, and like weather is at times it just changes in the valleys. It just changes without giving you any kind of a warning. And while coming back, I didn't want to refuel, so I'd landed at Dehradun and I quickly took off because the weather was marginal at that point in time. But the time I entered Kedarnath Valley, it became very marginal. I mean, there was fog all over. I just couldn't see the valley. I just couldn't turn back. I was low on fuel. And luckily, a few days earlier, there was a helipad just below, and I had landed there. So I remembered there was a helipad there. And I had no choice but to land. But I couldn't see the helipad, right? And it's like, that point in time, something happened. There was just a small hole which I could see through that fog, and I saw that helipad. And somehow I just made that landing. And I think that those moments, if I have to relive and revisit them, I would be very nervous. But that point in time you aren't, because then, the machine is so, you flying the machine, you are the pilot, you own it. So once I landed, and the owner of the helipad who just came running and he said, "Ma'am, you're made of steel." So, this just reminds me of that incident. It happened. And I mean, there's nothing different I just did what I had to do. So, this reminds me of that as well.
So, as I was reading the book and her introduction, she grew up in a small town, and in those days, no social media, no internet, no TV, not TV also, I don't remember whether it was so much there. So the exposure was very limited. and all a girl knew was just study hard and that is your future. And she was doing MCA, and final, just 6 months short of completing her MCA, she sees one random advertisement and applies and leaves MCA and goes there. So I really want to know how, number one, your parents allowed you to do this, because this was totally uncharted. There were no women pilots before that in the military. And how did they allow you? And if you had to turn the clock back, would you do it differently?
That's an interesting question. Actually, I never told my parents. No, and that happened not because I didn't want to tell them, I didn't know how to tell them. I mean, any letter would take about 15, 20 days to reach, right? And the reply, another 15, 20 days to come back. And I didn't have time. And one day I just happened to, I was waiting for my friend at the hostel and I was about to go to the class. My placements had started at MCA. And I just opened up the newspaper that day. It was like divine way of, telling me to do something. And I opened up the paper and the first thing I saw was this ad on the paper asking women to join as helicopter pilots in the Indian Air Force. And it's almost, 30 years back. It was really, really special then. And it's like an inner calling that says, this is what I want. This is where I want to be. So I just applied. And I didn't have time to speak to my parents. And interestingly, my sister, she was kind of 100 miles away from me doing her own studies. She too saw the ad the same day. And she too had the same thought. This is where I want to be. She applied. No mobiles, no connection, no talking to each other, no consulting the parents, taking their permission. We just applied. And we got the call letters. And by then the parents had come to know. And it was a little late for them. They said, okay. Call letter aa gaya to jao, SSB karo. So my sister went and then I went and she got through and I got through and we just, both of us landed up as course mates. So that is another thing that happened. Destined to happen, I believe, but somewhere, the destiny is what you create is what I also believe. And I think over the course of discussions, we would come to that point as well.
So Namrita, you have in one of your chapters, I think chapter 10, spoken about being unstoppable, The power of thoughts. The power of thoughts are so strong and very powerful. So how did they influence you?
Yes, thoughts are very powerful. And, like we said, when I was growing up, I had no one to guide me. I had no mentors. There were no coaches. There was no internet. There was no Google Baba. You could consult. So all I have learned are the things that I've learned from my own experiences. And why I say thoughts are important, I started reading about them much later when, the law of manifestation was up, the book Secret was out. But I had experienced that very powerfully in my own life. And because your thoughts make and break you and your thoughts create your life's reality. And if something is not okay in life, the first thing you need to go back and think about is, where are my thoughts? And, we use them so mindlessly. If we had to spend every dollar to a thought that we had, we would do use it so judiciously because they are that valuable and important. And I would like to share one, my experience which I have put in the book, for those who have not read. So this was when I was doing my solo sorties and we have a solo check. And if you fail the solo check, they just send you back. They just give you 2 more extensions and send you back. But my stakes were high. I had risked my very prestigious degree of MCA and we were the first batch during those times. And we were told that you will be taken by all the greatest companies all over the world, and that's a reality. My colleagues are doing the same today. So I had given that up to come and be in a profession where we had to wear a uniform and we had to do flying because that I was very passionate about and I was where I really wanted to be. But somehow, during the solo check, I was not able to do a landing, which I'm supposed to do. So I was failed and I was given 2 extensions, right? So the 2 extensions I flew, I was again not able to do any landings. Now after those 2 extensions, you are given just 1 more attempt. And if you fail in that, you just pack your bags and go. So my last sortie, my instructor said, Namrita, I don't know what to do. Because, even if my wife would make these landings, I wouldn't pass her also. So forget you. And I knew that something was really wrong, something I wasn't doing right, but what I didn't know, because I was working hard, I was practicing on ground. And, in the profession we are taught that whatever we do in the air, you got to practice in the ground at least 20 times before you do it in the air. They did not tell us that this is what visualization works, all those theories didn't exist. We just knew the practical part of it, and like good soldiers, we just followed what was told. So I was practicing everything on the ground for hours together. But what was it that I was not doing right? So those 2 days, I just I said I have to go back and I have to start from scratch again. Because this is something I just can't afford to let go. And I have to find out where is it I'm going wrong. I'm working hard, I'm doing everything possible, but where is it I'm going wrong? And then I realized that I was, during my visualization of the sorties, paying attention to what I do not have to do, than what I have to do. So I was always thinking of, what if I would make wrong approaches? What corrective actions I need to take? I wasn't thinking how to make the right approaches. And this realization, I think, was probably God sent, right? And so after this, I started visualizing the right approaches. Yes, what is it that I need to do, and what I do not need to do. And once I did that, with just faith, I did my last sortie. I'd made that landing, and my instructor couldn't believe it. He said it could be fluke. So he made me do more landings to see the consistency, and they were consistent this point in time. I passed and I stayed put. But what made me, that point in time, the power of my visualization, right? Later I read the book The Secret and connected the dots. So it just makes me believe that a lot of times we are always focusing on what is it that we don't want in our lives. And that happens. So we need to shift to what we don't want to what we want. It's the mind is a beautiful weapon that we have. It's just that if we learn to train that mind to lead us to things that will give us more joy and happiness, and not what you can't be or what you can't do, your reality in life can change. And probably this is a small experience that I've shared. There are a couple of others experiences which may have made me so, made me realize that thoughts are so, they make or break you, right? They are that important, something that we don't even realize. So that's why there's a whole chapter on the power of thoughts here, and some of my experiences are also shared there. So, yeah.
So as a pilot, going to the Siachen, what does it really mean? I mean, many of us sitting here wouldn't really know what a helicopter would be doing in Siachen, and what would be the kind of duties that a pilot would be performing, and what kind of daring situations that you would be and challenges you would be facing.
Yeah. So Siachen, with Air Force, we just support the army, right? See, the guys are posted at God-forsaken places, helipads, places just close to Pakistan border, height of 20,000 feet and above, temperatures very low. So we do airmen. We are like their lifeline. We provide them with the food, the kerosene, the stocks, their letters, which are very special to them coming from home. We carry the sick people out, right? Because a lot of them get sick because of casualty, war, or they get sick because of the weather. So that's what we do for them. And flying there is a challenge because everything is working against you, like Seema ji just read that paragraph. So that's what we do. And when we see them there, what we do seems nothing, right? It just looks like a very minuscule part of what we are doing. Because there are soldiers who are actually living there where we just land for some time and for a few minutes. So they live there for months together. So yeah. So that's what just propels you and motivates you to just do more of what you do and do it better.
So, जब मैंने book पढ़नी शुरू की, so of course every line, every chapter is full of motivation. And I run an NGO where I work with rural children. And I just kept thinking ये book को तो उनको ज़रूर पढ़ाना है. ये रूरल बच्चों के लिए तो बहुत ही ज़रूरी है कि आप कोई भी ड्रीम को अचीव कर सकते हैं. So any plans of taking, I think you should take this book out in Hindi and regional languages. Any plans to take out this book in regional languages?
Yeah, I think I just got an idea. But definitely, if it has to reach more numbers, it has to be translated, and I think that could be my next project, doing it. And yeah, it's a good idea. Why not?
Great. I gave you an idea today.
So it's a very cliched question maybe, but most of the women sitting here who have been working would probably agree that there are so many challenges which come in life and for working women, and many times we give in. हम छोड़ देते हैं और उससे भाग जाते हैं, career को आगे नहीं बढ़ा सकते, and your kind of career was even more demanding. So how did you manage this balance? Mother of 2 children, you had to leave them. How did you manage and juggle between home and yes, and husband of pilot. So how did you manage and juggle this?
One is that, yeah, we talk a lot about balance, but I truly don't believe in any balance. It's very difficult. The moment you strive to balance out something, things go out of control. They become unbalanced. It's like a seesaw. Seesaw is never balanced, right? There's something up and there's something down. It's just that we need to be okay with the downs and okay with the ups as well. So more than balance is a question of satisfaction, right? How satisfied we are in a personal and professional lives. That is easier to achieve. The balance is not. So let's stop running after balance, and that's what I did, because there are few things you have to compromise. That's okay. But the mother's guilt is huge, and it comes in the way a lot of times, right? So how you deal with that is, one, you ask for support. I was very lucky to have amazing in-laws who were very supportive. You create that support if you do not have support, right? And we're all resourceful people, and it's never a question of resources. It's a question of being resourceful. And I believe that we as women are very resourceful from within. We can find out things, we can make things happen if we really want to. So create that support. And then it comes, and at times just be okay with things when they're not okay. This in pursuit of being perfect in everything that we do is where we fall short of our own expectations we have of ourselves. So in case, just stop running after perfection. Just be authentic. Yeah, just be okay with not being okay at times. We as women need to learn do that. But another thing is that a lot of women I've seen, they give up their careers because they have a lot of excuses, they're not able to. So one is you got to manage that, and you can manage that. You have that power to do that. Second is that your kids will never learn what you tell them to do. They will just learn what they see you doing. So it's a choice whether you give up your careers and that's a message you're giving to your kids, or they see you going through it, not giving up, and that's what they learn. So when that comes, and that's a bigger picture, right, that is there. So I think we should always look at the bigger picture, never run after balance, and just be okay at times with things when they are not okay. And just be ourselves and be okay with who we are. So.
You already shared some, but can you share some more barrier-breaking moments that came into your life, or when you broke some glass ceilings or any other air ceilings?
Yeah, there have been many, and some of them would happen when I joined civil. And because in military everybody is trained and you are treated equal, the environment is so different. And civil, I would be flying civilians, and single pilot, I would be doing that. And a lot of them, when they would come to the aircraft and they would see me. And when they do Char Dham, a lot of people, they have their earnings collected of their lifetime to come and do that yatra. And I got so used to it. They would look at me, and then I would see that expression of doubt, and would they really want to do this? And that would propel me to make that takeoff even more dicey for them. So at times they would just clinch to their seats, and I would enjoy that moment. So that's happened a lot of times in my civil flying. That has happened. But yes, we've broken ceilings, and we've done that without. So one was with my sister, like we were flying, and we were when we were cadets, we were made to do solo sorties, and when we flew solo, there was another co-pilot with us. And one day, someone just planned both of us together, right? A cadet, and without any kind of, it's just a normal planning happened, and we flew together. I was the pilot, she was the co-pilot. Then we came back, and we would so sheepishly go to instructors, scared of aaj debrief mein kya hoga, that nothing else would come to our mind. But then someone called us and they said, "Do you know what you've done today?" I said, "No." Said, "You've broken a world record. This is the first time, you know."
Big hand, big
yeah,
hand.
Yeah. So it's the first time two sisters have flown together. And we couldn't even express our happiness there, you know. Because cadets, you're supposed to be so, kind of keep everything to yourself and not be so expressive, because that's not taken like a good soldier and all. So we just nodded, and we just didn't know how to react to it. That evening we did celebrate, that was okay. But that's how it happened. But things have happened. But that's there in my book, right? Where does this desire come from? And it was not, though it was a lot to do with destiny. If I hadn't read that paper that day, I wouldn't have been where I was. But then it happened for a reason. Probably I created that too, through my intentions, through what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. So that it got created in a way, and that's what I believe. We all have the ability to create our own reality. And if it does not happen the way we want, we need to take ownership of that and look into why. And you know, most of the times, anything that is stopping us is us, nothing else. Externally, what happens are all excuses. So that's what I just thought I would say.
Interesting. How unknowingly, without knowing, she made world record. And I believe there are many more records you've made. Maybe you can tell the audience which are the other jhandas you've garrowed. And also, now that you've given up flying, you are not flying anymore, and you're still young. And reading the book, I know you are not going to be satisfied just with the accolades you've collected so far. What is next in the pipeline, or what do you envisage yourself as?
Yeah,
Maybe training more people to become helicopter pilots.
But that needs a huge infra. That's very complex. That doesn't happen that easily. I wish I could do that. But yes, now I think it's about them. It's about the others. It's not about me anymore. And this realization comes because, you know, there comes a point in time when you see what is it that you want to really do. You've done that. Now what? And you also know what got you here will not get you where you want to go. So now it's about them. It's giving back. It's about contribution. It is about helping others achieve their definition of success, whatever it is. You know, success means different things to different people. It all means, it's all valuable, it's all meaningful. So I just now help people achieve their definition of success. I've been in corporate as well. I wanted to see what happens in corporate, how does the game work. So I now help managers to become leaders in their lives. I help women to become leaders in their lives. And that's what I do. So I'm also a success coach. I'm a performance coach. And I help people to reach their next level and their definition of success. So that's what, you know, you got to make it matter at some stage, make it matter to others and give it back from where you got so much. So that's where my next phase now starts. And I'm working towards it.
So you are a life coach now. Yeah? And do you have a Insta page or something where we can, or any?
So I'm on LinkedIn. You can look at me at the Namrita on LinkedIn. So I'm there. I'm on Insta, but Insta I'm not very active because of my various beliefs about social media. And I can't tell my kids not to be on Reels and Insta all the time if I'm there. So maybe the price I pay is my visibility, but there are other ways of being visible and present. And organic is a great way, and I believe in that. So that's what I'm doing. But definitely LinkedIn is one social media I'm very active on. So thank you.
Lovely chatting with you, and definitely yours is a story for every Indian girl. And because when I work with women and girls, and boys. Of course, boys are okay, but the girls have dreams these days. You have to see young kids. They have fire in their belly. Every girl in the village wants to become police officer. Every girl. So I think your book should be, I'm going to read your book to them. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your inspiring words. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Good evening, Namrita. It was absolutely awesome listening to you. और बहुत ही ऐसा लगा कि हर फीमेल की ये इच्छा होगी कि आपकी तरह हम बने या बन सकते हैं. So you truly are a great inspiration. But at the same time, I would like to just ask you one question which is very relevant for me and I think for most people. How did you get over your fears? Like you did something so fearless. So how did you get over your fears?
Yeah, that's a good question again, because we all have fears in life, isn't it? All kinds of fears. And I had fears which were very much against my own profession, which were like, I had fear of heights. And if that was not all, I had motion sickness. So I know I wouldn't travel even for 2 hours without taking that Evermean tablet. And I knew if I was getting into something, it would be impossible if I didn't fight with them. Fighting with heights was okay. I would just climb on top of tall buildings and keep looking down. But how do I overcome this motion sickness? And I remember the first sortie I flew with my instructor. I was so scared, I put a puke bag in my pocket, overall pocket, next to me because I was sure I would puke in the first sortie. I never sat in an aircraft earlier, the first time, and then now sitting and flying an aircraft next to the instructor. The first sortie is an air experience sortie, and the instructor wants to show off his skills and what the aircraft can do. So he did a lot of aerobatics. Yeah. And I was like, I think I'm packing my bags and going back after this. But I was surprised to find something about my own self, that I did not puke. And why did that happen? Because my mind was totally focused on something. It wasn't focused on anything. It was focused on something which was important to me at that point in time. And wherever your attention goes, your energies flow. And wherever the energies flow, the results will show. So I was like, I came back, I did not puke, I surprised myself, I broke that barrier that day, right? And, our mind is, the potential is infinite that we have. We undermine it so many times. It's just that when you push yourself beyond those limits, when you get out of your comfort zone, and you're ready to face risks, not scared of them, you realize what potential you have. Probably I was made to do that point in time, and this was my realization with fear. So most of the fears in life will not even happen. More than 80% are made up stories, right? They will not happen. But the real fears we have, we need to face them head on, because if you don't, it's like building a wall. And every time you want to run away, the wall gets stronger. So we have to face the fears which are real. The ones we create, we need to just delete them forever, right? And that's how I think it's a great way of dealing with fears and not being fearful. So, yeah, I hope I've answered.
This is Namrita's mother-in-law. No, I'm not going to ask her a question because I know all the answers. But I want to tell you all something about her. You have been asking her questions about how she's so strong and how she's so fearless and so on and so forth. But she has gone through really a lot of difficult times. I think the most difficult time is to leave your child behind and, leave the child to somebody else to raise, particularly a mother-in-law. So I was lucky to raise my granddaughter since she was born till she was about 3.5 years old. And I remember during that time we were in Ladakh, and I had my little granddaughter with me, and I was on the top of the world. And she was doing a course in Coimbatore, and we decided that we'd just fly down to Coimbatore and let her see her daughter. And my granddaughter was, of course, very attached to me and my husband. And we landed in Coimbatore, and we were just walking out of the airport, and suddenly this little kid, I told her, I said, "Dekho beta, koi hai? Wo dekho mama." And this little kid walked out, and then there was Namrita in her uniform. She came in front of her and she sat down and started crying. This kid got so scared, she came running back to me and said, "Ye kaun hai? Ye bol rahi hai, main mummy hu." ये बोल रही है मैं मम्मी हूँ. मैंने कहा हाँ बेटा ये मम्मी है. She said, "No, you are mummy." I think that's a very difficult thing to take for any mother. I don't know how, she took all that. That's very tough.
I think we all as women come through these, right? We face these challenges, and that's what makes us so strong and so special. And if we didn't have challenges, we wouldn't be who we are. So I think thanks to all my challenges, and I kind of love facing them, because the challenges are what they made me who I am today. Yeah.
Before we end, I want to thank Namrita, because it was people like her who paved the way for many other women to follow this career. So thank you so much.
Hi Namrita, it was very nice to hear your story, very motivational, being a woman, it was amazing. My question to you is, you talked about the power of visualization and intentions and your energy and all of that. So you talked about that moment when you saw the ad to apply for a pilot. So before that, do you have any realization like that you wanted to be a pilot, or you had some intention behind it to apply for, what was your intention? The intention was just to become a pilot, or something bigger than that?
If you read my book, you will come, the initial chapters talks about that. But just to answer your question, I think I always wanted to do something different. What that different was, I also didn't know. Because till that point in time, pilots were not there in military, in India especially. When I saw this ad, this spoke to me as if I am different. This is what you want, come to me. This is what was the message I was getting from that ad, that point in time. It was like the calling, the defining moment that you get in life. You just know what you need to do, and you don't bother about the rest. So that risk I was taking, I knew it's a huge risk, giving up my prestigious degree, going into an uncharted territory I had no clues of. Nobody to guide me or, tell me the pros and the cons. But when you go and go wherever you want with an open mind, I think that is what sails you through, right? There are no judgments, there are no preconceived notions, there are no fears as well. Yeah, you just overcome them. To answer your question, it was different what was important, and it came in that form, which I just embraced. Yeah.
So she may be sitting in Silicon Valley with Nadal and Nadella and Sundar Pichai. So they're lost, but again.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would request Mrs. Richa Singh to please come forward. Richa Sinha, ma'am, sorry. To please come forward and felicitate the author and discussant with a memento as a symbol of our love, respect and gratitude.